So we're going to start talking about the 1920s. This is our unit after World War One. One of the things we need to talk about at the beginning of this unit is one of the themes that appears throughout this entire study that we're going to do. And it's basically the idea that there are a whole bunch of social changes that are happening, and a lot of them are a product of World War One or post World War One changes. And there's going to be a lot of backlash to that. So there's going to be real cultural tension and cultural shifts that go on in the 1920s. And again, a lot of that has to do with it being a post-war era. Now, the first thing we need to talk about before talking about social issues are economic ones. And after World War One comes to an end, you have a dramatic increase in inflation. And a lot of this occurred because there were no more restrictions on what consumers could buy, or food rationing or fuel rationing. This created a higher demand, it created higher prices, and the cost of living shot up dramatically during the post-war years. And because of this, you had a whole series of economic strikes because of the unrest that was occurring. The cost of living went up, workers wanted more money, companies couldn't afford to give it to them, and a whole bunch of strikes ensued. You had a general strike in Seattle where a number of different unions are going to come together and agree to go on strike at the same time. You have police officers going on strike in Boston, which got so severe that Governor Calvin Coolidge actually sent in the National Guard to break up the strike. And you had a steel strike where the American steel industry, a number of them being immigrants, are going to go on strike as well. And they're going to be striking for higher wages because their working conditions go up. Now, this unrest in this post-war environment is going to create all sorts of tension throughout America. And a lot of that has to do with what had happened in Russia at the end of World War One. In Russia, you had a socialist uprising and an overthrow of the government. You had basically a communist revolution in Russia after World War One came to a close, or at the end of the war. Now, communism is when you have a revolution of the workers against business owners to create an equal society. And communism had just taken over in Russia. What you have in America now, you have strikers where workers are protesting against business owners, and they want more money, they want more rights, they want more privileges. And so as more and more strikes occur in the United States, many Americans are going to start to be very concerned that you have a new movement, very similar to what went on in Russia. Remember, some of the strikers, many of them are actually immigrants. They're bringing over immigration and they're bringing over different ideals from different political ideas from other countries. And some people are concerned that these radical political beliefs are moving into the United States, and you're going to have this kind of class warfare between those with and those without. And so you have this movement in America, and a lot of people are very concerned about it. Many Americans begin to accuse strike leaders of being communist revolutionaries who want to take over America. Now, to make matters worse, you have a whole slew of packages with bombs that are going to be sent to all sorts of important people. Politicians, business people, Wall Street, the Attorney General of the United States, the chief prosecutor, the chief lawyer, A. Mitchell Palmer. His home is actually going to be personally damaged by one of these bombs. And so he's going to actually create a brand new department, a new government agency called, well, it becomes known as the FBI. And he puts a young man at the time named J. Edgar Hoover in charge. And together, they're going to start what becomes known as the Palmer Raids. And their goal is to find radical political leaders, find communists, find anarchists, many of them being immigrants, try to kick them out of the country, try to deport them. But this is going to be something that is fueled by paranoia, by fear, and many argue that the government in this case is going to go too far. One of the ways the government goes far is by limiting immigration, and they do this through quotas and limits on the number of immigrants that could come in from different countries. And one of the things we're going to talk about in class is how this fear, this unrest, it manifested itself in a case where two men named Sacco and Vanzetti, who are immigrants, Italian immigrants and anarchists, people who didn't believe in organized government, they're going to be accused of murder, and they're going to be put on trial in what many say is a very, very unfair trial that really shows what was happening in America at the time, how people were not really looking for justice, but really it was a nativist sentiment and a fear of communism, a fear of anarchism, a fear of radical ideas, and an anti-immigrant sentiment that was going on throughout the United States. So